Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Round Robin. With me today is Christine Mulligan, Nina Mulligan, Regina Lindsay, Angela Sinclair, and my husband, Todd Preston. Hey, everyone.
Hey. Hi. Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
On today's episode, we will be discussing manipulation. We will also be discussing Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck, who were masters of manipulation. Has anyone ever heard of the term dark psychology before?
No.
No. Yeah.
You did? Okay, I've never heard of it before. I was like, oh.
That's what I'm going to school for, Chuck.
Da-
Reverse psychology. I've heard of that. Dark psychology?
Yeah, so I'm going to, I'm going to lead off by reading an article from PsychCentral.com. And the article is named Understanding Dark Psychology and Manipulation Techniques, written by Nancy Levering on May 14th, 2024, and medically reviewed by Lori Lorenz, who has a doctorate in psychology. Dark psychology looks into how people use their understanding of human behavior and emotions to control others. It includes tactics like guilt tripping, gaslighting, and reverse psychology. Have you ever met someone who seems to effortlessly handle social situations and understand emotions? People with high emotional intelligence, otherwise EI, have these skills, using them to empathize, adapt to different social settings, and solve conflicts peacefully. So, what is dark psychology? It explores how individuals use tactics such as manipulation, coercion, and deception to achieve their goals at the expense of others. Now, dark psychology is not a recognized scientific field, but rather a term used to describe these negative and often unethical practices. So, manipulation is basically an umbrella term for many techniques that we're going to talk about. It involves cleverly or deceptively influencing or controlling someone, often at their expense, using tactics such as persuasion, deception, and coercion. It is used in personal relationships or work environments. Manipulation often exploits emotions, vulnerabilities, or beliefs to achieve goals. So here's some manipulation techniques. So one is called paltering, which I have never heard that name before, but once I read the definition, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally know that. I just never heard it called paltering before. So paltering is when someone tells the truth, but not the whole truth. So here's an example. Let's take someone on a first date. Someone says, quote, "I'm really open and honest in my relationships. My last partner and I even shared our social media passwords." Now that may seem like an honest revelation, but the person fails to mention that their previous relationship was marked by distrust and jealousy, so leading to the sharing of passwords to monitor each other's activities. By offering this information unprompted, the person attempts to appear honest and open while hiding negative aspects of the relationship. There's also gaslighting, which is a form of psychological manipulation where a person makes someone doubt their perceptions or sanity by denying the truth or altering reality. Here's another example of that. In a relationship, this can involve one partner repeatedly telling the other, quote, "You're imagining things," or "That didn't happen like that," leading to self-doubt. Backstabbing, which refers to the act of betraying someone's trust or confidence by secretly harming or undermining them, especially after pretending to be their friend or ally. It involves deception and betrayal, often for personal gain or to harm the other person. Then there's triangulation, which is a manipulation tactic where a person involves a third party to manipulate or control a situation, often by creating competition, jealousy, or insecurity. And an example of that would be like a couple of friends. So let's just say Allie and Bracy are friends, and Bracy starts a new friendship with another girl. And instead of addressing her feelings directly with Bracy or finding ways to cope, Allie may start making negative comments about the other two. And that behavior is meant to create tension between the new friends. We have exploitation, which involves identifying, taking advantage of someone's weaknesses, insecurities, or fears to manipulate them. And this can include emotional, psychological, or physical vulnerabilities. And an example of that would be like a scam artist exploiting an elderly person's loneliness and desire for companionship by pretending to befriend them, only to manipulate them into giving them money. Guilt tripping, which is a manipulative tactic where someone tries to make the other person feel guilty to control their behavior. It often involves emotional manipulation to make the person feel responsible for something that's not their fault, or to exaggerate the impact of their actions on others. Reverse psychology is a strategy where someone encourages another person to do something by suggesting they do the opposite, tapping into their desire for autonomy or defiance against being manipulated. Here's a great example. You probably wouldn't want to spend time with me anyway, so go ahead and hang out with your other friends. Love bombing. This tactic is used to gain someone's affection or trust by overwhelming them with attention, compliments, and praise. And this creates a strong emotional bond that can be used to manipulate or control a person. So, for example, in a romantic relationship, a person might use love bombing to quickly win over their partner by showering them with gifts and affection. And this intense display of affection can make the target feel special and loved, but it's often done with the intention of gaining control. Negging, that's another one I haven't heard of before, but I know it. I just never heard of the name. So it's a tactic used in dating or social interactions to undermine someone's confidence, making them seek validation or approval from the person using the tactic. It often involves giving backhanded compliments or mild insults disguised as compliments. So an example of negging would be by saying to a person that they're interested in, quote, "You're pretty cute for someone who doesn't take care of themselves." These traits can be found in various people, including abusers, criminals, people with personality disorders, and those with neurotic traits. And these such people often experience a high level of emotional distress, anxiety, or moodiness. I found that really interesting. And of course, some of these are definitely tactics that Raymond Fernandez would use on his targets, older, lonely women. So what do you guys think about some of those?
Well, when you were talking about that first, honestly, my first thought was nothing says one of us cheated like a joint Facebook account.
Right.
I mean, seriously. You know, not to say that everybody that has a joint account with their partner has had that, but a lot of times that's the case.
Yeah, it's kind of a giveaway.
You see people in this joint social media account because they're keeping tabs on one another.
Yeah, I find that a little strange. It's a little much. It's a little overbearing. If you can't trust your partner, then they shouldn't be your partner.
Exactly.
Yeah, but some people have to, that's why they're in new relationships, is because the old relationships went horribly bad. So sometimes it's just kind of, throwing spaghetti at the wall a little bit, figuring out a new path forward. So you got to leave some room for that. But I agree. You got to have a modicum of trust with each other if it's going to work out. But I was thinking, yes, I have heard of dark psychology. And now I'm wondering why we've never brought it up before, especially when we talked about the cults and everything. Because I think that's where I actually know that from. Is because I think cult and also, I just forgot it. What's it called when somebody's held hostage and then they love their
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, it's also, I think, correlated with a little bit of Stockholm syndrome. Before Stockholm syndrome happens, there was dark psychology that happened to that person that now has Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome is when someone perhaps is being held hostage originally against their will, but then after a while they begin to identify with their captors. And one of the most famous cases, actually, what was her name? She ended up robbing a bank with her captors. This happened back in the 60s. She was a wealthy socialite.
She was kidnapped, right? She was
kidnapped, and then she ended up being indoctrinated by her captors.
Who were the Black Panthers, weren't they?
Robbed a bank with them.
I know. All of our listeners right now are shouting out the name because they all know it.
Hang on. Patty Hearst.
Patty Hearst.
Patty Hearst.
Hearst. Okay.
But I finally remembered the name.
Awesome.
Not that dark psychology is the same as Stockholm Syndrome. I'm saying that dark psychology is utilized by the captor to get that person to identify with them, which in turn causes Stockholm Syndrome. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I just think that that's where I learned about that with, captive people and in cults. I think that's along the lines of where I've read about dark psychology before. And basically, it's just manipulating in an evil way is a summation of dark psychology as far as I can translate it, if that makes sense. Does that not track with what you researched, Trace?
It totally tracks the psychological advantage, right? We do that in our conversations when we're at work or, right, reading the room and knowing how to talk to somebody. But these people are doing it to take advantage of someone. There's a goal in mind, a dark goal. Raymond Fernandez, his goal was to love bomb, manipulate, gaslight. Well, he wasn't really gaslighting, was he?
Yeah, he was gaslighting, especially to the one that ended up sticking with him.
Oh, that's true.
He totally gaslit her. And he gaslit her so hard and so successfully that he got her to come back around and be with him again. In the podcast, we talked about how she came back with a little more firmness, like she was going to be his partner and not just his lackey. But, I mean, essentially, she still was his lackey, no?
She absolutely was. They manipulated and robbed and killed for him.
It's kind of like a pimp hoe situation. Like, don't they have like a bottom bitch or something? And that's like the top girl that brings in all the other girls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that, Angela?
I think it happens a lot more than what we realize. In this case, it was to rob these women of all of their money and kill them. But dark psychology is used by a lot of different people: narcissists, sociopaths, attorneys, politicians, salespeople, leaders, public speakers. It's used in commercials. I'm actually kind of reading an article about it.
What's the name of the article?
It's just dark psychology and manipulation. Are you unknowingly using them? And it's Dr. Jason Jones. And there's a dark psychology triad. So there's narcissism, which is egotism, grandiosity, and lack of empathy. I can't even say it.
Is it Machiavelli?
Machiavellianism.
Machiavellianism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Using manipulation to deceive and exploit people and have no sense of morality. And then psychopathy, often charming and friendly, yet is characterized by impulsivity, selfishness, lack of empathy, and remorselessness. And these two people had all of that.
Yeah, they absolutely
It's just
did.
crazy to me.
Really, it wasn't just that she was so head over heels and in love with him. I mean, obviously there was some sort of attraction initially that got her in there, but what if she was just a sociopath herself and she enjoyed the rush of manipulating other people and taking another life?
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%, listening to the story.
Yep. And the other thing that I was thinking of when you were talking, Regina, is that, right, if we think about the life of Martha Beck, she was a big girl. She was over 6 feet tall, or she was 6'1" or 6 feet tall. She was bigger than most girls her age. And, right, so her brother had raped her, which she claimed he raped her, and her mom kind of beat her down on that, blaming her. It's all your fault. She gets pregnant. That guy wants nothing to do with her. She gets pregnant again. She gets married, and then he gets, that ends in 6 months. So she's failing at everything. So that all those things would just beat you down and make you feel horrible. So I'm assuming that, it didn't matter to her because she's got a man who's a great lover now, and he wants her with him as long as she goes along with this. And I think it gave her a sense of power. Like, okay, you know what I mean? She's feeling on top of the world. She's with someone. His main motive is still to rob women and then eventually kill them. I'm just thinking that the shoe's on the other foot finally for Martha.
Yeah, I mean, for once, she is the perpetrator and not the victim.
Right.
And she's somehow trying to, claim her own power back by victimizing other people.
Well, in some respects, she just doesn't know any better, right? She was never treated right. She always felt like an outcast. So she went forth and treated everybody wrong and tried to make everyone else the outcast or the sucker or the butt of the joke. And being with him allowed her to do that. So maybe it wasn't him that he liked so much. Maybe it was actually her feeling of power that she liked in the sadistic way that it was.
Right? I mean, to go from being weak to feeling like you're so in control. And she's doing it to other women. Now, granted, not all of these women that they went after were beautiful. And there was one beautiful one, and she was like, oh, no, no. Nope, we're not going to do that. But the older women, I think she definitely got off on being brutal, robbing them, taking what they had. Because not only would they steal the money and kill these women, Martha would go and steal their things, like their rings and their necklaces. So if you ever go back and look at some of the pictures in the newspapers and in some books, she is always very well dressed, but loads of jewelry, loads of rings, bracelets, necklaces, and none of those were hers. All stolen.
Yeah, and take all the things. Because she had a life of everybody abusing her and paying her no mind and making her the butt of the joke. She made these women the butt of the joke because was it his cousin or his sister? Like there was a time where they were lying about their relationship, right?
Yeah, they would say it was his sister. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she is making these women out to be a fool to believe that she is his sister. All the while, she knows that they're going to take this woman for everything that she has, and she is going to take all of her things, all the things, and then be done with her. So there probably was some joy in the pettiness. You know, there was some joy in, we'll see who's laughing last.
Exactly.
In a sadistic kind of way, actually. So now that we're talking about it like this, I think on the podcast, I was going down the path that she was kind of just lovesick puppy over him. Like I was thinking about it more that way. Like she was just kind of suckered and, you know, the only man that loved her and the only man that was nice to her. But now that we're talking about dark psychology and manipulation and we're really getting into it, there's always that other side. She could have just really loved doing it because she loved the power in it all.
Well, that's how they kind of portrayed her in the movie that was based on this story. Was she was pretty evil herself, you know, right from the get-go, because she had her own motives.
When he was like, "Yo," she showed up on his door stoop, and he's like, "I don't want any part of any children." She's like, "Okay, I'll be back."
Yep.
And like Christine said, she could have drowned him in the Hudson River.
Yeah, I do remember that part. I forgot about that. She did just completely dispose of her children, and that was insane. That's still insane to me. Mm-hmm. She was definitely psychotic.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was also, you know, kind of addicting for her. When she first started doing it, maybe kind of, I don't know, maybe she wasn't so sure, but, you know, it's kind of like an addiction to that power. It's a power trip, and you want more and more and more. You know, she was all on board with that.
Yep.
At that point.
Yeah, she absolutely
would
was.
do anything for it.
And she also kind of had something over him, too, that he could never leave her because she could go straight to the police. So she still, even though she was kind of his lackey, she still had a little bit of power over him, at least probably in her own mind. You know, never mind that he probably would have just killed her. But just the whole situation is kind of crazy. I mean, according to Wikipedia, it says that she sent her kids off to the Salvation Army. But, I mean, no one ever heard from them or about them again. So who knows?
When I was doing research for the show, I mean, plus I read a book on it, there was no mention of those kids any further than what we talked about on the show. Dropped them off at the Salvation Army, and she's like, let's go. I'm in. I want to also bring up a couple of things. So let's talk about how these people find these victims, right? Because that's really what they are. So this was placing an ad in the Lonely Hearts magazine, right? Pay your quarter and you get addresses of all these people. And it's the same thing as getting on the websites for dating
apps.
sites.
Yep.
Same thing. Women are so lonely, and men as well, but I don't know, and I'll take your guys' opinion on it, but I think more women than men really kind of show their weaknesses, and men that are out there looking for whatever it is. I'm not saying they're out to steal their money or murder them. Well, there's definitely lots of guys out there that are they're wearing a doctor's jacket and a stethoscope around their neck, and it's not even them. And women buy it. This actually happened to my sister. She thought there was a doctor from London on this dating site, and I don't even know what it was. It was not even a good one, not even a reputable one. She full on believed he was a doctor, and I'm like, what doctor is on this website from London? Which one? And, she continued, no, it's him. I said, oh, yeah? Ask him to call you on video so you can see him. So the more I kept pushing her to let him show his face, is he a real person or is he a scammer? Well, he was a scammer, because then the more she pushed him, then the more aggressive he got. And what did it come down to? He wanted her to send him money. And I'm like, see? And even out in social settings, the way you carry yourself. You know what I'm saying? I think those are all things when women are damaged, and I've been damaged. I've absolutely gone through my series of bad relationships. And you do want that love. I remember, and even Todd and I talked about this quite a bit, because we were in relationships that just weren't loving. It wasn't what we wanted. And I remember looking at other people thinking, God, I want that. I'm so jealous. I want that so badly. You know what I mean? So I was definitely very vulnerable many times. And that's why I kept repeating the same mistakes. Women just need to be real careful out there. Be careful how you're presenting yourself. Don't fall for everything. Take your time, really watch everything about these people that seem too good to be true. Just give it a little time. I always say there's a 2-year mark. After 2 years, people cannot hide their true selves.
I was on probation for 2 years.
He sure as hell was. That's no joke.
But you grew up together.
Yeah. That we did.
Well, interestingly enough, I was on a few of those social media sites one time after my last separation, and the number of people that try to hit you up and the stories that they can come up with, it was kind of interesting to watch, because once the first person hit me up, a friend of mine had already warned me about it. Like, watch out, these people will try to suck you in. And, like the hallmarks of it, they want to get too serious too fast. They want commitments from you. They start like blowing you up. One of them even went as far as to send me video, but it was definitely not him. I even had like a blurb at the bottom of my profile that's like, look, I don't fall in love online, and I'm not sending anybody any money. So please, if you're scamming, just like don't waste your time or mine. But they still tried, and it's insane. But I will disagree with you a little bit. It's not just women that do that, because I've known a lot of guys who, and usually they get involved with an actual woman that's overseas or something like that. And I know men who have paid for women's entire families to come over from other countries and things of that nature. And just for her to get her whole family here and then to dump them. So it does go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I agree with you. It definitely does go. It is definitely on both sides of the aisle on that one.
Hey, I argue with them. I love it when they text me. Oh my God. Christine yells at me all the time because she's like, you shouldn't do that. They're going to hack your phone. I'm like, no, they're not going to hack my phone. I'm just having a friendly conversation with them. I want to know, what am I winning? Like, what am I really going to get?
Clarify. You're just talking about scammers now. You're talking about when you're trying to hook up with somebody.
I know. I'm talking about with scammers.
Yeah, well, you need to...
But no, the thing is that when they first thought, this is how hey, it's Kelsey. Remember me? Want to grab some coffee?
Oh yes.
We get that shit all the time. We
It's
just
an
ignore
Asian
it.
girl.
So that's the text that I get.
Yes.
So when I say to them, and I'm like, oh my God, do you know who I am? Because I'm in the hospital and I don't have anything but this phone and I can't remember what happened. And they're, and then they're like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, do you want to grab a latte? I'm like, did you not understand me? I'm in the hospital and I don't know who I am. You know, and I try to drag it out as long as possible. You know what I'm saying? But they do. They try to hook you in with the, I'm just saying, it's manipulation. Trying to act like, oh, remember me? Oh, you were so cute. Want to grab a coffee? And like they use like there's some hot chick or something, hoping, I guess, to grab some random dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's funny. I like to argue with them. That's my 2 cents.
I say keep arguing with them. I love it.
Reverse psychology, damn it.
Yes, yes. You're not going to manipulate me. I'm going to manipulate you. That's a good
You do
one.
have to play into it sometimes. I mean, I did too. I would just string them along because I'm like, I really want to hear what story they're coming up with now.
Right.
I mean, like some dude that told me he was supposedly here in Texas and then worked in oil and gas and was going to Africa for a job. And then I'm like, yeah, I know where this is going. But anyway, tells me that he was robbed of payroll for his employees. And I'm thinking, okay, first of all, so I said, so what's your company going to do about that? And he's like, well, you can't send me any money. I was like, no, and payroll is insured. And why are you cashing checks and carrying cash around in Africa, you moron? Like, I don't know where you expected this to go. Like, you really thought that was going to work?
Yeah, everybody knows you got to
But
pay
clearly
with
it does, or they
kookaroos.
wouldn't try it.
And
I mean, it works on somebody.
Yeah, it works somewhere because they keep trying it, so it's working somewhere. Exactly.
yeah.
And I had someone working for me, PRN, that like sent $6,000 to some rando dude that she thought she was dating overseas.
All right. So for all you non-nursing people, PRN means as needed.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
It's per necessitas.
Love it.
Yes, I'm a nerd.
I love your nerdiness.
You're stuck with it.
But it's crazy. It does work. My stepdad, he got, he was an elderly, right? So he bought 5 brand new $500 iPhones and mailed them. He sent lots and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And especially if anybody has any elderly folks, have a good talk with them. Like, there's no reason. I don't even answer your phone. If you don't know that number and it's some stranger, some rando calling you up and giving you a sob story, hang up. I mean, I get very angry at the manipulation that people will pull on the elderly. That's one of my things I just can't stand because they just don't know the signs. They believe it.
Well, your biggest pet peeve then, this is what this guy used to do, only he didn't have the internet. He had newspapers and he would reach out to lonely, older women that felt like they didn't really have much choice and any guy would do. And then he would completely manipulate them and take all that they had and murder them. So he is your biggest pet peeve on steroids.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and think about the time when this was going on, too, that women being independent and single was not a thing. And so a lot of women, if their spouse had passed or for whatever rhyme or reason, they needed or they thought they did, but they were expected to remarry, to have a man there to take care of them.
Right, because
it wasn't socially acceptable to be a single woman living out the rest of your days without a man at your side.
Yeah, you got to have a man.
Yep.
Financially, you weren't financially able to finance your own life without a man.
Even if these women, had husbands that left them reasonably well off, I think there were certain things legally, as far as, women owning property and managing their estate and things that were a whole lot harder for them without a man.
Yep, you couldn't get a loan, you couldn't buy a house or property, you couldn't buy a vehicle.
Right, and a lot of these women, because he was focusing on the older women, like Christine said, widowed women that had death benefits from the military, property, money, vehicles, all because of the marriage they had. It's pretty horrible. It makes me very angry. And I will say I'm really happy with the swift justice when it finally was served. A year after they were found guilty, they were put to the electric chair. Well deserved.
Especially, I mean, the part about them, didn't they kill one of the women's child also?
Yeah, so Delphine, she was our Michigan woman. She lived in Grand Rapids, and she had the little girl right now.
What state was it? Was it New York where they were put to death?
Yep, they were executed in New York because they had killed the woman in New York. They put her, buried her in cement.
Yeah, they made sure that that happened, that they extradited them back to New York so they could get the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
The penal system won't put them to death, but the local yokels will.
Especially if you're up at the top of the mitten. The banditos. We're going to get the banditos. We're going to take care of this. Yep. You're not going to prison for life.
Wait, the actual banditos, like the motorcycle club?
Hello, did you listen to Malice Monday?
Yeah, did you just listen to the last episode with David Till and Brian Ogden? Girl, don't tell me you haven't listened yet.
Nope. I'm sorry.
Tell us you haven't listened without telling us you haven't listened.
Well, I find that to be a crock of shit. I find that to be a crock of shit. You might want to have a listen.
I will definitely have a listen, Mom. Okay?
Everyone on this podcast must listen to the podcast.
Well, okay, but we're talking about last season.
No, girl, this was Monday.
Yes, I'm aware, but the conversation that we're currally having
Oh, that's true.
is about an episode from last season.
Yeah, that's very true, but
I was not making the connection, so I'm sorry.
We'll get with it, woman.
Jeez.
What? You don't listen?
We need these numbers, girls.
You know, I listened because that's how this started, is I would listen, but I always listened on Tuesday, and I would text you guys when I got to work, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, did you think about this?
We got to give Regina some grace. We literally just dropped that episode when we're recording this. So, in all fairness, Regina's off the hook for not getting the Banditos reference.
All right. Off the hook.
Fine.
For
So,
now.
What's the voodoo deal? Like, how does that even play into this? Like, it said that he had gone to jail and was turned on to voodoo by his cellmate.
Raymond had stolen some clothes, and so that landed him in jail for a year, and his cellmate knew voodoo. Now, I don't have a whole lot, actually, I don't have a lot of details on exactly what type of voodoo or what he would talk to him about. I'm thinking maybe it was just he taught him about manipulation.
Yeah.
You know, hey, listen here, get the psychological advantage.
It's like the first chorus, see what I can do with this puppet.
Yeah, watch what I can do with this.
And essentially
puppet.
that's what a victim is. It ends up being a puppet.
Very true.
Yeah, he claimed that the black magic gave him irresistible power and charm over women.
Again, manipulation.
And I mean, I'm looking at pictures of this dude, and I'm just going to be honest, it doesn't look like he's got much game. I'm not understanding the world's greatest lover thing that he had going on with Martha.
Well, it was the toupee that did it for the women. They like that rug.
I don't know if they knew there was a toupee. I think the only one who knew it was a toupee was Martha. The other clincher was the accent. He was a Spaniard. I said it right.
Spaniard?
Is it Spaniard or Spaniard?
Spaniard.
So I didn't even say it right. Spaniard.
No.
What's the other word I can't say? Where the hell?
You mean
Schizophrenia?
Schizophrenia. That's how you say it. That's how I say it.
There's already a word. You don't need to make up a new one.
And we have our Canadians,
Tracy
our neighbors
makes
to the
all
north.
words her own.
You know what? This artistic interpretation.
She said, which other word? Like as if there's only one other word that she doesn't say correctly.
There's probably a whole basket full of words.
Yeah.
Okay, I caught Christine in one or two also. I'm just not going to call them out right now.
Yeah, well, it's my accent. I can't do nothing about that.
She's a New Yorker.
I don't do it in a manipulating kind of way. I just think it's funny.
You're a razzer. You're a
And I know
razzer,
it's not
right?
me. Okay.
No, I think she's a negger.
I think
She's
I
like,
am
oh
a
my
nigger.
God, you haven't fed me today. You're starving me. What is wrong? Why are you not a better wife? I'm like, oh my God.
Would she like some cheese with that wine?
Exactly.
You can,
No, but I was actually saying that not because of what I said to you, but like to my bestie. Like I neg her all the time. I'm like, what are you gonna do?
yeah, you're always busting my
I'm
balls.
constantly negging her, but it's like the more I pick on her, the more I love her.
Aw.
Yeah.
New Yorker thing. I don't know. That's
No, it's not. I'm the same way. If I stop picking on you, then you should probably worry.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the
So
relationship's falling.
we are neggers. That is considered being a negger, and I do acknowledge it. And if it offends certain people, I try to not do it to them anymore. But then I don't like them that much anymore either. So there's that.
Yeah. If you can't take a freaking
And-
joke.
And let's just clarify negging as in negativity, like making negative comments.
ooh, that's the
Because
root word,
it
right?
it sounds like a different word sometimes when you're saying it.
Especially when Christine says it.
Uh-huh.
Horrible.
So we just want to clarify that was not the word being used.
No, never. Oh my
Never,
God.
ever.
I know what you're trying to say, but if it sounds like I'm saying anything other than negging, like pegging, look how we got that one in here.
That was a great segue.
I knew it was coming. I was going to let you guys have it, though.
I hope that doesn't come across wrong. We were talking about psychological tricking, manipulation tactics, not any other derogatory words.
Correct. All right.
I don't know, the whole love bombing thing too. Nina and I both talked about this before, and Todd as well, just with, respect to relationships and narcissism and all of that. And that kind of goes along with that. It's the flip side of the negging, right? Because they will love bomb you and then they flip the switch and they only give you negative feedback. And so you're clamoring, trying to get that positive, you want to get back to the love bombing part, and it never happens. But that's how a lot of this manipulation starts, I think, with, if Martha were more of the victim. I think there have been some couples that we've talked about where I feel like one of them really was sort of a victim of the other's narcissistic personalities. I don't think that's really the case here with Martha, because I really think she's just a sociopath. I can see where, just like when we were talking about the cults, the controlling behavior starts because the cults will love bomb you too, right?
Right.
Tell you
Yeah.
how amazing you are and how wonderful you are. And then, 5 minutes later, they're telling you that, you're falling short and you're lacking and you can't do anything right. And they're the only people that can help you. They're the only ones that understand you. They're the only people that love you.
Yeah, but I think that this chick that we're talking about, she was definitely psychotic, because she didn't even really need the love bombing to stick around, because he basically gave her an ultimatum and she ditched her kids immediately. And what I have only been able to deduce, she killed her kids because they were never heard from again, to go be with this guy. So right off the bat, she was Cocoa for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, because let's think about that. Like, if she did take them to the Salvation Army, could you imagine, like, they were what, 2 and 4 or something like that? You don't think those kids would freak out when you're just like, okay, you're gonna, bye. I found these kids. Like, what do you say? How did all that happen, I wonder?
Well, 2 and 4, they probably really didn't. They probably forgot about it 48 hours later. 2 and 4, come on.
Wow, the poor kid will remember.
Yeah, for maybe a week.
After a while, again.
And maybe 6 months from now, he'd cry about it. But then you'd give him a cookie, he'd be fine.
I like my new mommy. She always gives me cookies.
Exactly.
And
My other mommy ate my cookies.
yeah.
Exactly. And threw me in a closet.
But how many kids that were left at a Salvation Army, which would
Right.
basically be like an orphanage?
Well, no, it's like a thrift store, so you get to pick whatever clothes you want.
You go pick up some clothes and some kids and just head
Yeah, but
home.
not what it was back then. In those days, I think the Salvation Army was like a one-stop shop for anybody that needed help, right?
Right.
And I think back in this era as well, that I don't know that it was necessarily all that uncommon unfortunately, for children to just be abandoned like that.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Like in the 1920s, you could actually mail your kid.
Mail your kid.
Yes.
Say what?
Yes.
Details.
Yeah, you just get put on the mail truck and ship your kids off somewhere. Guess what? You're going to stay with grandma. I'm telling you right now, somebody look it up because all my devices are being taken. But it's real. It happened all the way up until the 1920s, I want to say.
All right, come on, you Google queens.
Can we just talk about? I thought, like, somebody look it up because all my devices are being taken.
I can't do nothing. I'm crippled.
Oh, I thought he said his spidey senses were tingling. That's what I thought he said. And I was like, what does Spider-Man have to do with this? What?
Okay, history.com. When people used the postal service to mail their children.
We need more details. Keep reading.
Hang on. In January 1913, one Ohio couple took advantage of the U.S. Postal Service's new parcel service to make a very special delivery. Their infant son, Biggs, paid 15 cents for his stamps and an unknown amount to insure him for $50, then handed him over to a mailman who dropped the boy off at his grandmother's house about a mile away.
See?
I'm going to tell you guys right now, you should see Todd shit-eat and grin. He's like, just looking at me, nodding and smiling. I know a thing or two about a thing or two.
I know about mailing babies.
Todd knows about a time you can ship your kids to the babysitter.
Well,
Just
you know,
lick
we
the
grew
stamp,
up in
stick
an
it on the
era where
forehead.
you were told not to take rides from strangers, and now we have a whole app for a stranger to come pick you up and give you a ride somewhere. And it says regulations about what you could and couldn't send through the mail were vague when post offices began accepting parcels over 4 pounds on January 1st, 1913. People immediately started testing its limits by mailing eggs, bricks, snakes, and other unusual packages. So were people allowed to mail their children? Technically, there were no postal regulations against it. The first few years of parcel service, it was a bit of a mess, says Nancy Pope, head curator of history at the National Postal Museum. You had different towns getting away with different things depending on how their postmasters read the regulations.
Okay, so
yeah.
it wasn't an actual service that the Postal Service offered. It was people testing the boundaries because it wasn't enough rules to not be idiots.
They're like, you know what? I don't have a car.
Yeah.
Well, and this article goes on to say that between 1913 and 1915, beginning with the baby in Ohio, it wasn't common to mail your children, yet for long distances, it would have been cheaper to buy stamps to send a kid by railway than to buy their ticket on a passenger train.
Yeah, but you're buying a ticket on a railway in an open container car. Not
right. And then it says also that...
and a fan.
Right. Well, it says, in addition, people who mailed their children were not handing them over to strangers. In rural areas, many families knew their mailman quite well. However, those 2 viral photos you might have seen online of postal workers carrying babies in their mail bags were staged photos taken as a joke.
Yeah.
Is that a stork?
But if you put stamps on the kid and send him by railway, he would still need to be in a container, right? It didn't have to be closed, apparently. That would have been one of the rules they were being shady with.
The mailman might have brought a swaddled child who couldn't walk, but he would have let the diaper-wearing baby sit in a pile of people's mail.
Oh, my
God. So people were getting mail, and they're like, why does this smell like pee? I don't understand.
What is this brown stuff?
That atomic blowout.
Would they have still to deliver the mail if it was covered in human feces?
I'm pretty sure back then no one would have thought anything of it.
Ew. A lot of people were riding horses back then, though. So
Okay, there's
some
people riding horses now. What's your
But
point?
it's not everywhere.
Well, listen, in,
I
ni-
did.
in 1913, how was the mail being delivered? Horse and buggy?
It would have been horse and buggy. Think about how lax sanitation was even in things like meatpacking plants and various other industries.
Oh yeah, they were working without gloves and just wiping on their aprons.
They didn't wash their hands.
No, man.
Where do you put the stamps on the kids?
On the forehead.
On the end. It's a Cabbage Patch
The Cabbage Patch.
Hey, Cabbage Patch Kids are mailed.
They sure are.
In 1910, men collect letters from their horse carriage from mailboxes on trees in the woods of California circa 1910.
Okay.
So in California in 1910, they were doing that shit with horses. Okay?
Right, and then 1918 to 1924 is when airmail started.
So there could have been poop. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so they were
I'm confirmed.
airplanes before they had cars. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're trying to say to me right now?
She said later on.
They started, they transported mail by air starting, during that period, 1918 to 1924. But I'm sure that the Postal Service didn't have motor vehicles in abundance. 1903, December 17th.
Oh, God.
She's not stopping. She's like, you want more history, bitches?
Motorcycles and four-wheel
You can't tell me to Google something and then change your mind halfway through my typing.
I know it. I'm sorry.
motorcycles and four-wheel automobiles were used in the early 1900s.
Motorcycles with the big leather saddlebags.
Yep.
Well, it probably depended on where you were at, though, too.
If you're living at the top of the mitten, you were on a horse and buggy.
Yeah, the vehicles were probably only in the cities, and they probably had all the horse and buggies out in the country. But either way, I don't even remember how the hell we got off that, okay?
Todd did this. Todd is responsible.
He just put poop on the mail. And
The
what he
poop
have
on
to
the
say-
mail.
Mailing babies. Mailing babies.
Yeah, they
Mailing babies. They didn't shat on the mail.
Can you?
Yeah.
You
shat
shat
on
it.
the mail. They would still deliver it.
Can you imagine if you could do that today and these couples that split up? No, you get the kids. No, you get the return to sender.
What about come hell or high water? You're getting your fucking mail.
As long as it's not a government holiday or a Sunday or any other time they don't want to fucking deliver it.
Tracy got that motto from the Michigan Banditos.
You're making me choke on myself.
Hey, that's too much information.
I just want to know, can we still send children to the mail? I have one currently. I don't
Well,
have...
technically, it doesn't say you can't.
We'll have to see if they wrote that in their policy and procedures. Get one of those big old wooden crates with the big stamp on it.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I'll put some breathing holes in there. I'm not saying I'm not going to make it comfy.
Right, and here's some dried fruit.
Fragile. Well, this baby came from France.
Fragile.
I tell my oldest all the time that my grandchildren are the universe rewarding me for not murdering her when she was a teenager and being an ass.
Oh, the teenagers and girls are the worst. All right, everyone. Well, that is our round robin on Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck. Please think about everything we said about manipulation because it's all around us. It's in our personal lives. It's in our work life. We want to be able to see the signs and don't get manipulated. Don't get robbed and don't get murdered. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you back next Malice Monday. Bye.
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 See ya.
Bye.